Hope is sometimes thought of as naive optimism, or simply wishful thinking. However, evaluating and studying it further reveals something much deeper, and perhaps more crucially, something much more powerful. Charles Snyder sees hope as a combination of agency and pathways. The person who has hope has the will and the determination that goals will be achieved, and has a set of different strategies at their disposal to reach those goals. Seen as an equation of goals plus mindset plus strategy, hope can be used as a tool, just as Jane encourages us to think of it as. For Jane, hope is something that spurs us to action, and something that has, for centuries, acted as a force, pushing us to where we are today. In her many speeches and writings, Jane hones in on 5 key components that make up her reasons for hope. They are young people, the human brain, resilience of nature, social media, and finally, the indomitable human spirit, which I found particularly compelling, especially because of Jane's story about her husband fighting for his life and hanging on much longer than imaginable. I've seen this component in action in my own life, with grandparents who held on until the very end, waiting for the people they love to surround them before saying goodbye. And even this year, with the heroes who went to work every day fighting COVID, I see this human spirit daily in the lives around me, yet I never before appreciated the influence that it can have on me. Jane has afforded that. So thinking about this as the foundation for my own definition of hope, I now see hope as a mindset forward. It's a thought process that we can each choose to embrace every single day in order to live a more fulfilling and resilient life. And for me, including forward and choice were key aspects of my new definition, because it helps center me around the notion that we define our own path, even when it may feel like we're incapable of doing so. And my own components of hope boils down to choices, humility, awareness, faith, and resilience. I include choices because I now recognize that hope is a deliberate choice we can make every single day. It's not something that just happens. It's a distinct choice that we must take control of. And as Professor Tribus wrote, this life of hope mentality is not Pollyanna, but rather it helps us get into a mindset. We don't always have to be hopeful, but we can choose to identify hope and bring it into our minds and hearts, much like Jane does. I also think humility is a crucial aspect of hopefulness. I must be humble and willing to grow in who I have been, who I am now, and who I will become. I can't do this alone, and recognizing that is a humbling experience, one that I think people must go through to have true hope. In addition to choice and humility, a firm awareness is necessary to be hopeful. It's not enough to be naively optimistic, but it's through awareness of both the issues presented and ways of solving them, even on a small scale, that true hopefulness can blossom. It's also understanding that sometimes this awareness is difficult, but it's necessary. As Jane discusses at length in her autobiography, faith was and is important to her, just as it is for me. And it's for this reason that I believe faith is a necessary component of hope. And it's not meant to represent any specific religion or spirituality, but simply having faith in something greater than oneself allows us to live out this life of hope. And this reminds me of what my aunt said in being a carrier of her money and being a steward and trying to always think of the higher meaning in life and in what she's doing. And finally, I think resilience is paramount in capturing the essence of hope, recognizing that being hopeful takes strength and acknowledging that it's okay to fall down sometimes, especially if it means you will get back up stronger. And my inspiration for these components comes from Jane clearly, but also my aunt, who I had the opportunity to interview, and she sees hope as a virtue, even comparing it to tennis and how we must practice hopefulness just as we practice for a sport. Even saying,
virtue is something We make a choice to practice.
which I too firmly believe in. And in looking ahead, I know I will now practice hopefulness just as I have with sports. And I'm going to return to this podcast to remind me where the rootedness of my hope comes from, constantly adapting it to the time I'm at in my life then, and making it a part of my decision-making process. And equally important to my own life, I will use this practice of hope to help create just communities that I want to live, work, and learn in. Hope can be used to build these just communities because rather than getting knocked down by the plethora of issues in our surrounding neighborhoods, we could see it as a chance to transform people and places. And if my hope mindset can do that in even just one community, then it will have done part of its job. So in thinking about this, renewed hope can be renewed strength. And Pope Francis recently wrote in his encyclical, which my aunt sent to me, hope speaks to us of a thirst, an aspiration, a longing for a life of fulfillment, a desire to achieve great things. And it can open us up to grand ideals that make life more beautiful and worthwhile. Which is exactly what I'm trying to do here by taking this class and learning from the very best, Jane herself. So, Jane, thank you for being the reason my own hope is renewed and reinvigorated. So I close with a quote from Jane herself. Each one of us matters, has a role to play, and makes a difference. So whoever is listening to this, know that you matter, you have a very specific role to play, and you too can make a difference. It might take a little bit of hope or even a lot of it, but every person can accomplish amazing things if we do it with hopefulness. And we have Jane to thank for that.